just doing a brief video to show people how you can make your own martial arts equipment. This is an example of a vertical braking stand that I've made. Just to show you a little bit about it before I show you how to actually make one. This one can adjust up and down, a bit medieval but it does the job. And it can also pivot, so you can have it in both directions. And it's quite a sturdy old thing. So just to look at the construction of this, the first part of these rails was simply wooden beams attached directly to the wall with screws. So this is about a foot apart. I mean, it could be wider. I wouldn't suggest having it any narrower as it makes it unstable. So depending on how much space you've got, you can make it a little bit wider, but I wouldn't have it any narrower than a foot. The main thing about these is that they have to be exactly vertical and parallel. So the way to do it is to use a spirit level to get the first one in, and then either a spirit level or a measurer to get the second one in. Now this part here is simply a metal shelving bracket that you can buy at B&Q or Wilkinson's or anything like that. Will only cost you about, I don't know, £1.50 or something like that, something quite small. That holds the carriage onto the rails. So looking at the carriage itself, there are these two cross beams and just a piece of wood attached at either end, and obviously the space between those is exactly the same as the outside rail. This part fits exactly between the rails, although there's a little bit of leeway, otherwise it would be too stiff. And then to hold it onto these metal rails, if you look here, there's a little plastic item, and those are also very plentiful at hardware shops. They're intended for joining bits of Conti board together, and that just happens to fit precisely inside the rail and holds it on nicely. Then just looking at the turning mechanism, that's quite straightforward. The cross beams are attached to two more beams, although I did that mainly for strength. It might not really be necessary. You could attach straight to a piece of Conti board without the additional beams, but the final part of that part of the carriage is just a piece of Conti board like that. And there you can see a bolt with nuts and washers, and that simply goes all the way through to the other side. That's a coach bolt, also freely available at any kind of hardware shop. The coach bolt has a square flange on it that jams into the hole and so locks itself into position. So you can, when you do it up tight on this side, then it's stiff enough to hold it, but not too stiff to turn. And of course that's facilitated by the fact that you've got Conti board there, Conti board here, and a very smooth surface. You can always put a bit of wax in between to lubricate it. Of course the stiffness is set by how tight you put the bolt and nuts, and you've got two nuts there with one locked against the other so that the nut won't come undone. Now looking at the stand part, as you can see, that's quite simple construction as well, starting with the Conti board base. Then we've got an upright there, screwed into that cross beam. And the same here, 2 more uprights screwed into the cross beam. And then a couple of pieces of Conti board here and there. And of course this distance between them has to be just the right side for a standard board. So the standard board will then slide in. There's a facing panel on the top, and that's so that it doesn't fall out. And then finally at this end you've got, I put a metal bar in so that it doesn't fall straight through. I mean, you could just as easily put a wooden piece through there. That's just the way I've done it. This was something of a prototype, as I had no idea really what I was going to end up with when I started. Right, so then we talk about exactly how to get the carriage onto the rails and about the lifting mechanism. So if I begin hoisting it up on the pulley rope, at a certain point those plastic parts engage in the bottom of the metal rail, and then it's locked against the rail there. And by pulling on the rope I can hoist it up to the position I Right, so next we're going to talk about the pulley mechanism for pulling it up and down. Obviously there could be other ways of doing this that you can work out, but this seemed a very simple way. I've got a pulley attached to the cross beam above the rails and a pulley attached to the carriage. The rope starts off tied to an eye, a screw eye, large screw eye, goes down through the pulley, back up to this pulley, through that pulley, back down there, and then it's coming through another screw eye. Now, for anyone who knows anything about pulleys and how they work, would know that if I lift this, if you notice my hand is rising faster than the carriage, and that's because the way the ropes take up the slack, my hand is moving twice as fast as the carriage. And what that does is it gives me a 2-to-1 advantage. It makes it feel like only half the weight, so that makes it a lot easier to lift it up and down. Now this one here, where it's going through the eye, that you could have a pulley there as well, which would make it less friction, but I prefer just to go through the eye because that gives me more control in holding it. Because of the little bit of friction that's there, I can use that to control the position. So yeah, I'm going to hoist this up now. And then there's a cleat at the top, which you can buy again from a hardware shop, normally for clotheslines, when you have somewhere to tie your clothesline on the wall, which makes a very convenient way of joining up the rope without having to tie any knots in it. So that's it, that's the finished item. I've got it here in the right position for practicing a punch.